Nice to see you all. I'm going to talk about future of coding and scripting in the AI era. If any future is there, we will figure that out. I tend to talk a lot about strategy and architectures and those kind of things, but not today, because I thought that it might be better just to go ahead and show you the way how I work with AI, what I do, what works for me, and then basically share it with you. So this is all going to be the demo that I recorded a few days ago. Didn't want to risk the internet and so on. In my demos, there are no cuts, no speed ups, so we will see this thing in real time. So you will understand context as we go, because I have no time to spare. I will just jump into the first area, which is about documentation, and then I will explain some other context about the tools as we go. So one of the things that I'm using this for, I like good documentation and I hate to write it. So definitely documentation is an area where I definitely spend a lot of time using AI. So I'm just taking some Terraform project. You heard that it's a popular project, so fine. So I'm just taking my Terraform code, putting it into context, and I want AI to generate documentation for me. You need to be specific. You really need to say exactly what you want. And what I want to demonstrate here is that I'm typically going, step by step, iteratively, right? It's a good idea not to try to do everything in a single try. Just go step by step. So I start by asking for some basic documentation. So I want AI to read my Terraform code. There are a lot of cloud resources being deployed. And I want to read it and write some documentation about that. The tool that I'm using here is GitHub Copilot, because this is what I've got as a Microsoft employee. You can have very similar results in other tools like Windsurf or Cursor. You will get pretty much the same thing. So I now have a pretty decent documentation that looks good, and now I want to iterate on that. So I want to add some additional things. That is already looking pretty good, but I want to do something more. So let's, for example, create some nice list of cloud resources. I like in my documentation to have a list of the things that I'm using there. So I'm asking for that, and it should basically generate some list. Again, no cuts, no speed ups. We are looking at it in real time. So it's definitely faster than me writing the documentation. So hopefully this should go back, and you will get the list of the resources that are defined in your Terraform files, because the AI read it all. With that, when it comes, there is the button here. You saw me do that on the beginning, where I can select models. And there are models from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. You can even run some local models from China if you prefer on your GPU. So I'm doing that as well. And you can basically select what you want to use. Now you can see the list of the resources looks pretty good to me. It's in Markdown, so it is nicely formatted. For me to write that in 2 minutes, no way, obviously. So I've added another part of that. Now, with some of those resources, I would probably want to have some more details about that resource. So I'm asking AI to basically search the internet and give me more details about specific cloud service, because I want that service to be described a little better in that documentation, and I want it to search the web, so I have some good information about it. So it basically goes to the internet, search the web, find some documentation about that service, and then, based on what I want, should put some additional paragraph into my README doc, so I will have documentation for that service. And I'm basically then going ahead and do the same thing for yet another service. So you can see that in this case, this is something that works for a year or so already. So the models that you need to use here are not necessarily the thinking models. So you will use the based models like GPT 4.1 or Claude 3.7 Sonnet, which I'm using here. For some complex tasks, you might go with the reasoning models, which are much slower because they are thinking a lot. But for such simple cases, like reading a bunch of Terraform files and generating nice documentation and searching the web, that's easy for AI, so I use just cheap base models, and I'm totally fine with that. So you can see that it added this from the documentation. We are still in real time. Now I'm asking the same thing for yet another service, so it should add another paragraph here. I think this iterative approach is really important to grasp, because typically if you want too much from AI, you will pretty much always get big results. So my suggestion is always try to split it into smaller tasks and go step by step, and don't continue until you're satisfied with that small step that you just did. Works for coding, works for documentation, works pretty much for everything else as well. So the last thing that I want to use, I'm deploying some containers into the cloud, and in those containers I have some environmental variables which are used obviously to set up some parameters and configuration points for those. So let's ask for that. So once this finishes, so I have a documentation for that service, I will now ask to read the files and see my envs, and basically create a nice table about the environmental variables. Again, very important for documentation to have those kind of things there. So it will try its best to figure that out and write it there, and it will succeed. The thing is that you can then go ahead and refresh that after modifications, right? So if I add some resources in a cloud or delete or change something, I will just go ahead and just put into the context my README all the files that I changed, and I will say, okay, I've changed a couple of things here. Go ahead and fill it in, or do the changes necessary in order to documentation to be up to date. Do you have documentation which is up to date? Me typically not, but not anymore. So yeah, let's just wait a few seconds for the environmental variables table to come up, right? So this is really simple use of AI. Nothing fancy is going on. You don't need latest models, you don't need anything crazy, and yet you get something like that it's a 5 minutes and 30 seconds is the whole video. I would never be able to do such a thing myself in this time frame. And maybe not even in that quality. So my tips about documentation: be specific and descriptive. If you say, write me documentation, the results are not going to be very good. You can use non-thinking models, and you can use tools. The vision, I love that. You can, for example, have something like that from your meeting, nicely handwritten diagram of classes. So what I do, I just take that image, take it to AI, and I ask, okay, look at it and generate skeleton of that application, of those classes, in Python in my case. That's the language of my choice. And it basically generates the Python code by reading that with the correct methods and correct attributes and those kind of things. So that's good. But I'm not stopping here. AI is generating cats and dogs very well, but generating diagrams, it's not something which AI excels at, but it's good at generating text. So my huge recommendation to you is learn the text-based formats for drawings and pictures. Mermaid is the language of my choice. You can use Plant2ML and whatever else, but with that, I can just go ahead and say, okay, now create a markdown document and make sure that there is a mermaid diagram included there, right? So I went in 2 minutes from drawing, which is handwritten, all the way to generating the skeleton of the code to basically have an editable, nicer version of that thing in my README. So those are the tips. Basically, I've said that already. Now, you can go into your code base, and basically AI can index that code base. So it can look into your files and do some indexes, and based on that it can do this thing called semantic searching. So it means that it can search for the meaning. If you're in AI space, we're talking about vector databases and embeddings here, right? But this is what is behind it. But the thing is that I can then ask any question about my code base, and it should go ahead and try to search my code base and find the right spot where this thing is happening. So if it's not an aggregate question, but you're searching for something, where in my code I am doing this or that, it will succeed by finding that, and it gives you some nice comments about that. It works really well. If you want this to work really, really well, do the thing that you should have done already 20 years ago. Use good comments, write good doc strings, include description of a business logic. I tend to include things like architecture decisions documents into the repository, so there is a note about architecture and what are the decisions that has been driving us to this. You can combine that with the documentation as code tools, when you generate algorithmically some kind of documentation, and obviously prefer text. So no PDFs, no Word documents, and this kind of stuff. No, everything text, Markdown, and so on. You've actually seen that I've been searching the web already. I want to show you yet another thing that I really like there. If it started, it's not, okay. The thing is that the models are snapshot in time from the knowledge perspective. So if I ask whether the Pinecone, which is one of the leading vector databases, the new one, supports MCP protocol, which is a new, shiny, fancy protocol, it will tell you no, I don't know, because it has been trained half a year ago. But if I allow it to search, so I'm using a tool that allows to search, it will go to the web, it will find the information for me. Yeah, you have seen that already. So the answer now will be better because it will search the web and give me the right answer. But what it seems to me that not everybody knows is the fetch way. Because the fetch is that you point it to the specific URL, and it will download the document from the URL. So rather than searching, you will get access to the specific file. If you have not heard about llms.txt, that's a fantastic standard which basically defines how you should take your documentation, your website, for example, and basically dump it into single giant Markdown file and put it on your website. Pinecone is doing that, and because of that, I can basically have a single link that will load into the AI context complete documentation from this particular provider. So your sites, if you have something like that, look for llms.txt standard. It's just a file with all the information dumped there, and it works then very well. So that's my recommendation. Another thing, you can actually use it for data-related stuff. And the purpose of this demonstration is to show you that sometimes it's easier to show than explain. What I mean, I have a sample JSON file here with some data. I've not turned it on, so sorry about that. I need to press start, I guess. Is it doing something? Well, yeah, okay. So it's a JSON. In the JSON, I have an array of objects, which is users. Inside of those users, there are addresses. There can be 0 or more. And there is another array of orders, so there can be 0 or more orders. Typical data structure, no big deal. But I need to store it not in a NoSQL database, which would be great for this kind of thing. I need to store it in Postgres, right? So in a relational database. So I need to go from denormalized data to data which are normalized, obviously. So I've asked for that. See the sample data and create create scripts for me, for SQL, in a normalized way. So it should create like 3 tables for those things, for those entities, right? And have some foreign keys between each other, right? Simple thing, normalized data. I want to store in Postgres, not in a document DB or something like that. And it did that. So I now have the nice structure defined. I didn't have to explain what to do. I just showed. This is the data. Look at it and do this for me. Then I can use it to generate some test data. Not too much, but at least some for me as a developer to quickly try. So I just ask, yeah, please generate some data, make sure that the keys, the foreign keys actually match. It will, most of the time, it will do it okay. I'm using O4 Mini here, more clever model because I want those relations to be correct. So it takes a little longer time, but still no speed ups, no cuts here. We are looking at real time. So it will give me some insert statements. So I can just, put them into the database and then I'm ready to go to test things out. And because I'm not very good at SQL, I might also ask a question, give me some SQL statement based on what I need. This is the aggregate question. I want to get the list of the users with a number of orders, which is aggregate. So I need to have some kind of a join. So rather than trying to figure out how to do join, I will just ask to do so, and here you go. So that's a join, and I tested it, it worked. It can even do way more complicated databases. So the story here is you can show rather than explain. So what we have seen so far are the basics. You should all be doing that, and if not, please give it a try. This is the basic stuff. Now we go to little more advanced things that are now starting to pop up, are starting to be very popular. And one of those are agents in IDE. The agent is different in a one important way. The agent is not a single, you ask the question, you get the outcome. The agent is slightly autonomously working on the task that you give it. So I have some code, and it's a DevOps thing, so there is a Terraform to deploy cloud resources, and there is some Python code to use it. And I'm using queues, and I should move to topics. For whatever reason, I have a technical reasons to do that. Which means that the agent will have to understand this enough to do the changes in multiple places in my repository. It needs to go to my Terraform to change the way how I deploy to the cloud, because it's a different cloud resource. There is a different RBAC model. The different permissions needs to be configured. It also needs to go to the Python files and do the change there, because the SDK will be the same, but the method will be different, because we now have topics, not queues. So I need to have a subscription, I need to subscribe to the topic and whatever. So there are a couple of things that are happening here. Now the agent is basically planning what to do. So it goes step by step. Okay, I should do this, this, and this, plans this in head, and basically this is the plan. And now it actually starts to implement those things, so it will implement those changes, right? So now he's thinking, you can see I have a Google Gemini 2.5 Pro here, very, very clever model. Again, real-time, no cuts, no speed-ups. And now after the planning phase, he starts to implement those files. And once this is done, the agent might not stop. The agent might try to compile. This is Python, so there's nothing to compile, really. But if it would be Java, the agent will ask you, I would like to compile that. Are you okay with it? And you will say yes. And he will compile it. So you will even get errors that are not syntactic problems, but you can get errors from linters, errors from compilers, and the agent will not stop, but read the error and trying to fix the error, right? So it is multiple iterations going on if you're using this agent mode. That's really, really interesting, and changing the way how AI can be useful, a little more autonomous than all the previous examples, which are just kind of a basics for leveraging AI. So again, Cursor, Windsurf, GitHub Copilot, all of them have this kind of an agent in IDE. Few tips. Please own the code. I will reiterate that because this is my main message. If you don't understand what has just happened, then just rather don't use it. You have to own the code. It is your responsibility. If you commit to the repository, it is your code. So you should understand that at least a little. If you are saying, oh, it didn't work, fix it, fix it, fix it. This is exactly me when I'm doing something on front end where I have no idea what is happening, and I'm still trying fix, and the results are absolutely terrible. And we will come to that later as well. Tools. The biggest strength of today's AI is its ability to use tools. We have seen a couple of them already, like a search and fetch and so on. There is an MCP standard for connecting whatever. So I have attached it to my Kubernetes cluster. Now, the things that I'm going to do now are scary, and I do not recommend to do exactly what I'm going to do now, but it's fun. Give it a try. So I can just connect to the cluster, the K9s on the left side, and give me the list of the namespaces. So if you're a junior developer who are working with the Kubernetes for the first time, this really can help you a lot. So yeah, give me the namespaces. Okay, what are the pods in a specific namespace? This is not scary, this is okay. But now, I have some error. I want you to kill one of those pods so I see what is going on, right? So he just go there and you see on the left, he just killed one of those pods, and obviously it's Kubernetes, so the new pod has been started. And now I will ask question, okay, so now we have a new pod that came up. Look at the logs. Is there anything suspicious in the logs of this newly created pod? So that is my question. So he goes, lists the pod, get the logs, analyze the logs, and tell me, oh, everything seems okay. This Python stuff seems to be running just fine. So okay, do we have enough resources allocated to it, like in memory and CPU? So he will go there, get a description of it, and tell me, well, no, you are not specifying that. Would you like me to to do that for you? Do you want to help? And I say, yes, I would love that you can help me. And it is now going to my code base, right? So now, because it's still in Copilot, it's now going to my code base, see my YAML files, my customized Helm, what have you, and just give me the ideas into what file I should put this. As a junior, fantastic help. And because I want to learn, that's a key thing that I will reiterate as well, I will now ask, if I do the same thing using kube control, how would I do it? And he will just show me what we did so far, how he can do this as a user, how he can replicate that using CLI tools. So if you're learning Kubernetes, I guess there is no better way to learn Kubernetes than use things like that. Just if you don't know what you're doing, don't ask questions like, what about restarting, everything and those kind of things. Okay, so that's about MCPs. MCPs are able to connect your AI to cloud systems, to databases, to Kubernetes, and whatever. Well, this is not stopping here. It gets worse. Now, a few days ago, GitHub introduced this agent which is running in the cloud in CI/CD pipeline. Very similar thing has been introduced a week ago by OpenAI under the name Codex, and I believe Google yesterday also announced something like that. So now I have an issue in GitHub, so basically work item, and I now go and assign this work item not to my fellow human, but to my fellow Copilot, to my fellow AI. So the AI now created draft pull request, and it is working on it, right? So it read the specification, it created some plan, and it is now working on that. Now I had to cut it because it takes quite some time. So if I cut it, the next thing I did after 2 minutes, I've just opened, the screen where I see what he is doing. And the AI basically creates a developer environment, install the right dependencies and those kind of things, and start to work in that developer environment, right? So it basically creates its own computer in a cloud and start to code in that. And after like 10 minutes, it will basically finish the pull request. So I can see it here. We have a description what the changes were. Pretty good. And there are a couple of commits because it's iterative process. And because it's part of the CI/CD pipeline, it also sees the CI/CD stuff. So if you have DevSecOps or whatever, it will see the failed pipelines and try to fix it, right? So there are 5 commits. As he was adding, stuff, there are some changed files and whatever, and that's the story. So that's a very new thing, which has been expected for quite some time. The big question, obviously, is whether this is going to be, reliable enough. Probably not yet. You will use it for some really minor bug fixes or very small feature improvements, like make this button a little bigger. But those things need to be done by humans and are crazily boring. And you can get rid of that, and small things can be done like that. So I think that this is inevitable that the future will go in this direction. Here are some examples. The thing is that, writing a code, in fact, is probably not going to be your thing. It is not a thing that adds value. Well, the thing that adds value is telling AI what to do, so you can focus on epic work items, architecture, user experience, security, integrations, business logic. In all of that, AI is pretty bad so far. It will get better, but not today. The last thing before I wrap up. I love brainstorming with AI. I definitely suggest you to do the same. There are multiple tools that you can use here. This is a prototype called GitHub Workspaces, but you can use, for example, artifacts in Anthropic, very good, in Claude. The Google Gemini has something like Spaces, I believe it's called. So I like to discuss about my project, right? What can I do better? Can we check the resiliency? Can we check the architecture trade-offs? I'm an architect, so the trade-offs are the only thing that I do, because always you have to choose something. It's not black and white. So I'm discussing trade-offs with AI, and it really helps to have this kind of a brainstorming session. It will not do the decision for you, but you will be able to ask his opinion, and it really, really helps. There is one specific tip that I would like to share. Walking with books and talking with books is my favorite. So I tend to read a lot of books, but I don't like to read, so I'm listening to it when walking, driving, cooking, whatever. So I'm listening to audiobooks all the time. What I do after like 20, 30 minutes, after a chapter or so, I just stop the book and switch over to ChatGPT Real Voice, and I start to discuss the topic with the ChatGPT, because this really helps you to better understand what you have just heard. It's really good to have this kind of an interaction. But I believe there is a spot on the market which is not yet covered, ability to buy the book and also have this conversational partner. Today I have to do this manually, so I need to steal the book text or get some references to it, move it over to my ChatGPT, I create some project there so he knows the context, and then I can switch over and I can have a discussion about the book. It works incredibly well. The same with podcasts. We can have a podcast and then discuss what you heard there. It's fantastic. Okay, so what is the outcome of that? From my perspective, I believe that the AI now are moving from the role of assistant to more like a peer, right? So it's your colleague, really. What tend to work for me very well is when I am specifically steering the models in the directions that I want. So I am the architect. I am the systems thinking person, the design person. I'm providing integrations, framework strategy, what framework to use and whatever, some business requirements, maintainability of the code and day-to operations. I believe these are your inputs. I think that this is the interesting stuff. This is why I am doing this job, not for writing a code, but what is behind it, which is this. And with that, even if the code will be 90% written by AI, which is, by the way, the prediction for the end of this year, in many companies, the big ones, like OpenAI, Facebook, and those kind of guys, majority of code is going to be written like that. You are owning the code. You understand what is going on, and you define, directions. Then it works fantastically. In other words, if you're a senior developer, this can make you a superhero. It can amplify your skills. It's just fantastic. What doesn't work very well? If you have no idea what you're doing, you're asking, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. The code that I have seen that comes out of that is terrible, and it's definitely a huge technical debt that will, hunt you, and you will suffer in the future. That's what is going on if you have no idea what you're doing. So if you're a junior developer, I don't think this is what you should be doing. But for junior, the AI makes you the best learner on the planet. So for the senior, if you know your stuff, you can use AI and you can become superhero and much more productive than ever before. If you're junior, don't try to mask yourself as a senior, but rather ask more questions. I very often, when the code is generated and I don't understand something, I just go and ask. And I switch the model. I do Google, then I switch to OpenAI and ask OpenAI to explain what the Google did. So I have some different opinion or something like that. And it really helps me to understand what is going on. So, what is the future? Well, I think this is the future, at least for some time. I think that AI will get better. Eventually, we'll write all the code on the planet, but that time is not here. So today, and for the next few years, I believe, this kind of peer programmer is, where we are heading with that. Good luck. Thank you.
It was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
it
you.
was really good. I hope that you enjoyed as I did. You learned something new. Now it's time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, my colleagues have microphones, and feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. We have somebody there.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for presentation. I have a question. It's all sounds very promising, cool, and how about guardrails? So person have kind of natural guardrails.
Yep.
If I see something is bad, I repeat 5 times, I will stop.
Mm-hmm.
But LLM won't do this without some circuit breaker or guardrails. It can, I think, crash the Kubernetes cluster to the limits. you will have probably, maybe even worse. How
Yes.
about this?
You're right. You will never be able to have AI that is 100% predictable. There will always be situations when it misbehaves or it's not reliable. We can definitely do a lot to lower that chance. One of the things that I was not talking about, but I'm a big fan of, are the custom instructions. So basically, typically what you do, that in every project, for every role, for every person, you craft some special prompts, the files that explain AI what you want to do. So for example, coding style, standards like that. This is helping a lot. There is just one break at this point that I am aware of. If you have the agent mode, there is by default like 15 operations, after which the AI will say, it doesn't look good. Do you want me to continue? And you have the choice to say no, switch to a different model, and try it again. But a very, very good question. It is a big security question, which I believe is something that you will hear on this conference as well. Good point.
Thank you. Great talk. A bit scary, but it's okay.
Scary, okay.
I have a question about your first part about the documentation. So, I mean, 80% of us don't write documentation, right?
Yeah.
Don't like to write, but 99% don't read documentation. So why do we need to waste time and resources to write documentation instead of just checking out the code and ask the specific questions that we actually are interested in?
Oh, good question. I still think that there is a couple of humans who read documentation, at least I hope so. I do, I try to do. But the thing is that you're also doing documentation for other AI agents. So think about this. You have, typically what I do, if you have a multiple microservices in organization, you will write some README on that microservice level. You will have some open up API specifications and those kind of things. What I tend to do, I tend to automate the process of basically going for each microservice repository and extract this information and write a README file, which is kind of a central README file for all microservices. And it is not for humans. It is actually for my AI agents. Because if you're writing the new microservice in the ecosystem of 50 microservices, if you give code to all the 50 microservices to AI, it is too much, right? The AI will get confused. So I'm using this documentation also to feed it into the AI models so they can understand in an easier language, what is going on. And if you make life of the AI easier, you will get better results. So I'm always trying to be helpful to AI. When they become our overlords, they will remember who was nice to them. So I'm always thanking, and I'm always trying to help, and this worked for me very well. Thank you.
I think that we will need to progress because we have another speeches. So if you want to speak with Tomas, he will be here for a whole day. You can have like 6 hours of Q&A with him. I'm sure that you will have lots of questions on him.
Okay.